Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Window, and I'm joined with
AJ Brown,
Bryce Window,
George Mangus.
We have a lot to talk about today. All things sports. We have NFL. We're going to be talking about the MVPs of the league and who we respectively think it should be. We have college football. We're going to be talking about the Ohio State Buckeyes versus Notre Dame in the championship. We have UFC. We have MLB, and we have the NBA. And first things first, we're going to be talking about the Houston Texans traveling to Kansas City. Houston are 8.5-point underdogs. Houston coming off a huge win, 32-12, against the Los Angeles Chargers. And Justin Herbert was forced into 4 interceptions that game. And mind you, Justin Herbert only threw 3 interceptions all season. He had a 23-3 ratio. And on Saturday, he threw 4 interceptions. 4 against that Houston defense. In my opinion, I think Houston's defense is going to be ready to play against this Kansas City offense. Kansas City hasn't played since Christmas. Is there going to be rust there? A lot of questions to be asked. I'm going to hand it over to my man, AJ. What do you have?
Man, it's Kansas City Chiefs time. It's playoff football. That means KC's going, right? We'll see how it works out, but Houston to go into KC and win this game is going to be a real challenge. I mean, the weather being one factor, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid being another, Taylor Swift looking from her suite. That's going to be another factor. I just don't see Houston going in there and winning this game. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying it's very unlikely. What Houston needs to do to win this game, though, is they need to give the ball to Joe Mixon. First year there, he was tremendous first half of the year. Tremendous. And then he kind of
been a beast.
He kind of slowed down towards the end, though, didn't he?
He did a little bit.
Go ahead.
No, I just think, the wear and tear of the season naturally, and you'd like to see the running back really start to pop off towards the end, but, I think he's still a dominant force. Don't get me wrong, but, I think I have a bad taste in my mouth from that Baltimore game that they, lost 31-2. But I know
that was on Christmas, right?
Yeah, it was. It was on Christmas.
Merry Christmas to Houston fans.
Yeah, seriously. But I think Houston left with a sour taste in their mouth. They played Tennessee the week after, and they got the job done. So be it. Week 18, Tennessee was looking to lose that game. They wanted the number 1 pick, but they came to play. And in my opening monologue, I didn't even mention C.J. Stroud and last week. I think C.J. Stroud played tremendous. I think he improvised the game very well. You get the ball in Nico Collins' hands and you get the ball to Joe Mixon, you're going to be set. Your offense is going to have a lot of firepower. Back to you.
Well, it's just like I have Joe Mixon on fantasy. The first half of the year, he's tearing it, going crazy, and then he just slowed down towards the end. And I think part of that is just because the Houston's offense wasn't as good in general, and that's going to show for the running back. But they got to give Joe Mixon the ball both in the run and the pass game. Don't limit it to just the run game. Find him on screens. Get him open downfield. Get him open in space to run and do his thing. Mm-hmm. Also, just getting to Mahomes, getting pressure to Mahomes. That guy, he's the best we've seen in our generation, obviously, but we've shown that he can be beat before. Obviously, in playoffs, it's harder. He has lost in the playoffs. The Bengals beat him that one year in the AFC Championship, and Bengals got a lot of pressure that game. So if Houston can get pressure to him and keep him from escaping the pocket, moving around the pocket, and find receivers deep, I think Houston has a great chance in this game. However, I don't think it's going to happen. I think due to the weather, I think just due to Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in the playoff is different football. They know how to win games. I think they cover. I'm going to go KC wins big here in this one.
And George, before I take it to you, I'm going to go to Bryce real quick. Bryce, your thoughts on the game?
It's going to be a really good game. I think the Chiefs may pull it out. The weather will be a factor, just like AJ said. Patty Mahomes in the playoffs in the division round, he's undefeated, 6-0. 1,800 yards, 115.8 passer rating, 16 total touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 70.4 completion percentage. And I saw the stat, Houston Texans are 0-5 in the divisional round, so I think it'll be a good game, but I think the Chiefs will win.
And George, your thoughts to conclude it?
There's a lot of stuff we could talk about, but at the end of the day, you got to talk about one thing. Patrick Mahomes. And he's going to show up like he always does in the playoffs. He's going to come out there, firing his team up. And until they get beat in the playoffs, since they've won it the last 2 years, it's hard to pick against Kansas City, especially with that weather being a factor for Houston. I don't know if they're going to be ready for that. Obviously, their lineup is a bit damaged. You know, they lost Tank Dell against Kansas City earlier. We all saw that. Stephon Diggs not being there. C.J. Stroud has to limit his turnovers. He has to play a very clean game, and I just don't know if that's going to happen. And, you know, if Houston wants any chance of winning, they have to get off to a hot start, score touchdowns. And I can't say I see that happening, and I think Kansas City covers the spread.
You think Kansas City minus 8.5? That's the final word of that game. And that's going to take us to our next game. The Detroit Lions will be hosting the hot Washington Commanders. And I'd be remiss for the Commanders, the first thing I should talk about, Jaden Daniels. I think he's a star in the making. I don't know how Detroit's favored by 9.5 points. This guy, Jaden Daniels, has proven time and time again he will keep it close, and he will give you a chance to lead a comeback at the end of the game. I think it's happened time and time again. Crazy things have happened. He can make it happen with his arm and his legs. I seriously think he has a shot to be the best quarterback in the NFC, and really, I think he has a chance to be an MVP contender next season, and I think he's undisputed the Rookie of the Year. You know, some of the keys of the game, AJ, I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. What do you think about this game?
I mean, it's just an interesting matchup, to say the least. I mean, you got two different stories from these two teams, and it's just crazy how they're both in this situation. You got one side. I mean, we all knew the Lions would probably be here. AFC Championship last year, we knew they had the offensive powerhouse. We knew they had Dan Campbell. We knew they had superstars that could lead them there. Offensively and defensively. Obviously, this year, though, they've dealt with injuries late towards the season defensively. But guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sure-handed receiver, the talented running back, you know, we knew the Lions would be here. But on the other side, the Washington Commanders, nobody thought they'd be here. The only people that thought they'd be here are the diehard Washington Commanders fans, actually Washington Redskins fans from the 20s. Those are the only people that thought Commanders had a chance to be here this year. And there's one reason why they're there, and it's Jaden Daniels. He's taken this league by storm. I mean, Rookie of the Year, the best quarterback in his ball club, best athlete in his ball club. He's impressed me. He's impressed a lot of people. I think the Commanders are going to have to give the ball to Terry McLaurin this game if they want to win. Their run game has not been the best. They're not a run-heavy team. They're a balanced team. They give the ball to a lot of different people. They spread the ball out, and I think that's why they're so dangerous. But they got to be able to feed their best player, and that's Terry McLaurin on offense, other than Jaden Daniels, obviously. But their best receiver is Terry McLaurin. They got to give him the ball. Also, you got to keep Lions O off the field. You got to win the possession battle. You got to take time off the clock. Let it tick. And be more physical than the Lions. Be more physical. The Lions are a pretty physical ball club. Offensively, defensively, they can be. But I think they got to just outmatch them physically and be able to have big plays. The Lions are going to have big plays. You got to limit the Lions' big plays. But also, Redskins got to have big plays on their side of the ball. So, I mean, my takeaways, though, I think Lions are just too overpowering on offense to lose this game. But I think Washington can keep it close. I'm going to go like a 33-27 finish. That's my guess for this.
And I like you bring up that point. The spread line, actually, or the over-under line, is actually set at 55.5. And before I give it to you, Bryce, on that, I'd be remiss to talk about Washington the way I did without bringing up Detroit, the story of Detroit. You know, Dan Campbell, what a leader he is, with Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, the two coordinators of both sides of the ball, both geniuses. You know, they're both of them have a very good shot to become a head coach this offseason. Really, it's going to be their own decision. I don't see how teams out there aren't going to hire them. You know, Jared Goff is playing his best ball in his career, and I don't think that's by coincidence. You know, I think Ben Johnson really has it dialed in. He's scheming guys open. He's getting guys open for Jared Goff, And mind you, they have some studs on that offense. Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, they have some guys there. And Amon-Ra, second in reception, second in receiving touchdowns in the entire NFL, only behind Jamar Chase. You know, I really think it's impressive what they did over there in Detroit to really turn it around the past few years compared to what Detroit's been. And Bryce, you know, back to you. 55.5 is what the line is set at. What are your predictions for this game?
Well, before I start with the Lions, I'm going to do a little segment. Will the over or the under hit? So we're going to do the Texans and Chiefs game.
We didn't talk. Okay. Gosh.
Dude, why can't...
We'll do this later.
Whatever.
Just edit it. You don't have to restart.
I know. Go.
All right. The over-under is 55.5. I think it will be a pretty high-scoring game. I think the over will hit. But the money line, it's pretty incredible how much of a expansion it is. Lions are minus 470, and the Commanders are plus 360. I think it should be down just a little bit because of how good their offenses are. And Jahmyr Gibbs has been incredible. 1,400 in rushing yards, 16 touchdowns. I mean, he's been incredible. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown has just been amazing too. He has 115 receptions, 1,200 yards, and 12 touchdowns. The Commanders have to find a way to stop them too, or it's going to be ugly. And I think the Lions win. George?
Mr. Mangus, you
George?
with us?
Yeah, I'm still with you. It's hard to hear if you don't bring me in, Tyler.
All right, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, George, go ahead. Your thoughts on the Lions and Commanders?
Lions and Washington, I think, is, besides the Baltimore and Buffalo game, probably the game of the divisional round, to be honest with you. I think me and Tyler were talking about this. You know, we have our debates on who the best quarterback of the NFC is right now between Jared Goff and Jane Daniels, and I think they're top two, so that's going to be a great matchup to watch. I think Washington, they have to be a bully in this game. They have to come out swinging hard. They have to come out hitting people, you know, applying that pressure on defense, and, you know, just not being scared of the moment or scared of Detroit, because I feel like Detroit, they've beaten a lot of teams in different ways, and, you know, they might get caught up in that moment. But if they stay calm and, you know, they just weather the early storm that Lions might put on them, then I think they'll be just fine. And they got to be dynamic and get Terry McLaurin the ball. I think they don't really throw it to him as much as I think they should. And I think if he gets involved early in maybe some screen patterns or something like that, it can really help to, you know, get him going. And because their run game obviously is not what they probably want it to be. And then if you're Washington, it's all in Jaden Daniels we trust. Just let him make plays. Let him just do what he needs to do. Be dynamic. Run the ball. Get out of the pocket. Do whatever that he needs to do to win. And then Detroit, I think their relentlessy has really made them who they are. They don't care who's playing on the team. All their defense injuries. Kirby Joseph playing great as safety. Tyler's favorite player, by the way. They have a dynamic offense that they can just throw it to Amon-Ra. The pitch back to Williams or Gibbs is crazy. Run the ball. I think, Tyler, if I'm not mistaken, is David Montgomery back in this game?
I think he is going to be questionable. Don't quote me on it, Bryce. You have the computer up. Could you figure that out for us real quick?
Yeah.
I think he is. I think they said he was going to play because it's playoffs now. But either way, I mean, running the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs, using that run game like they do is just so hard to stop. And especially if they have Montgomery back, then that'll be hard to stop with a 1-2 punch. And I think I do like the over. Definitely like the over of that game.
Yep.
The spread, I'm in the air. I don't know. I could just see it being a close game all the way, and then Detroit has a late touchdown to seal it and win by 10 or 14, but it's closer than what the score put. But I think Detroit wins the game because of I think they're just more. It's just out of all the teams in the NFL, they just seem like they're the most
developed
team. They all just seem to rally around each other, and they all stick together.
Yeah.
Jared Goff threw 5 picks in the game, they still won the game.
They did.
they're always together, and I think the Lions will win.
I give a lot of credit to that to Dan Campbell too.
Yeah.
He's one of the best coaches in the NFL right now.
He's a great leader of men. He's a great leader of men. Bryce, what were you gonna?
Well, David Montgomery is
back.
back for this game, so
Probably
that's
was.
going to be even harder for the Commanders to beat them.
You're having
that 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Very important. Like you were gonna say. Sorry.
No, you're good. And by this time next year, on FanDuel, I think the amount of trick plays Detroit Lions running the game is going to be on there over 1 or 2. I could see that being there because I've never seen a team that have ran that many trick plays, and it's fun. It really is fun to watch.
It is fun to watch, and we'll see if Ben Johnson's back. I don't expect him to be back.
You think he'll find a head coach gig somewhere?
He will be a head coach somewhere in the NFL. I think early on, I think the teams that are favored. I think Vegas seems to be really in the mix on Ben Johnson. Through rumors, I have heard they're going to be throwing a huge deal at him that would surpass his money mark from what Andy Reid is making, which would be just shocking. Considering what Andy Reid has done, that would be a shock. But, Vegas is desperate. They're desperate. They're looking for a guy to lead their franchise. And it wouldn't shock me.
But I feel like
Is it shocking, Tyler?
I mean, I think it's shocking because leading a team and running an offense is 2 different things. To give trust to an individual and running an NFL franchise is a little bit different than running an NFL offense. So, I mean...
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you.
I'm not saying he's not going to be a good coach. I'm just saying that I feel like for him to be paid that much it's risky. So.
It definitely is a risk. I think Vegas is just desperate, but I think another team to focus in on is Chicago. Interdivisional, and they see each other twice a year. I think Ben Johnson might be licking his chops, seeing who they have. Their young team, pretty fresh up front with the O-line, and Caleb Williams, promising. They have some receiver talent. They have Keenan Allen. They have DJ Moore. They have DeAndre Swift back there at running back. They have talent. So it's
what just sucks? What just sucks is that these teams that just get a good defensive coordinator and a good offensive coordinator, they just can't stick around and just build a powerhouse in that team.
Yeah.
They always have to be head coach somewhere. We just can't keep their greatness.
That's how professional sports work, though, because,
It sucks.
Other teams have money to pay, and coaches end up going where the money is. So, I mean, now some coaches like to stick around, and, but most coaches, I'd say, they want that top spot. They want to be a head coach. That was their dream growing up. So
a lot of these coaches definitely do want to be that top dog. They want to be the alpha male. They want to lead these franchises and be the guy that is up front in the media. That's who they're asking about. They're not asking... in Detroit, it ultimately falls on who? Dan Campbell. They're not saying, Ben Johnson could have called a better game or Eric Gled could have called a better defense. No, it falls on Dan Campbell at the end of the day. And, I think that pretty much wraps us up with Washington and Detroit. Any further comments about, either of those teams?
Let's go Lions, baby.
Okay. And that's going to bring us into Sunday, the first game, which is going to be the Los Angeles Rams traveling to Philadelphia to face on against the Eagles. Philadelphia coming off a big win against Green Bay. They didn't look the best, really.
Packers.
Yeah, Packers didn't look great. The Packers did not look great. But, this is about Philadelphia. I'm not going to really dwell on the Packers losing, not surprised. 22-10, though. They didn't ask Jalen Hurts to do very much offensively. And, they honestly looked kind of flustered. Jalen Hurts went almost a full month without even being, full participant in practice. I don't know if I'm concerned, but I'm definitely questioning their offense right now and if they can rely on Jalen Hurts. I think their offensive line is the best offensive line in the league. I think they can rely on Saquon Barkley heavily. But that brings me to my next point, is if they need to drop back and pass, they're facing a Los Angeles Rams team who just sacked Sam Darnold 9 times on Monday night when they last played, as they won 27-9 in a neutral site game at Arizona where they faced off against the Vikings. I'm gonna go ahead and start with you, George. What are your thoughts on the game on Sunday with the Rams and the Eagles?
This is a hard game for me to pick, and I think it all comes down to. I really do think it comes down to LA's offense versus Philly's defense. I think if LA can be able to move the ball, get it to their players like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, then I think they're going to be explosive. And I think that, honestly, LA can just outscore them, honestly. And I think the biggest thing you got to do in LA's defense is just kind of shut down Saquon, because Jalen Hurts doesn't have that great an arm. We really haven't seen him have to, really win a game and, really have to push his team. It's always kind of been like a whole team effort. The home field advantage will be big. LA will have to go to Philly where it's a little colder there, a little different conditions. But I just think LA's is just too much for them. I think they got too many explosive guys, and I think LA wins this game 34-24.
34-24. That's a big line, considering the line is actually put at 43.5. I'm going to go to you, Bryce. What are your expectations on Sunday? And let me ask you this question as well: can Jalen Hurts get it done with his arm, if need be, in the fourth quarter?
Well, this is going to be a tough game for me to pick and just decide, but I don't think he will, to be honest. They're just going to rely on Saquon to really do it in that defense, but can that defense really stop the core of what the Rams have? Puka, Cooper Kupp, and Kyron Williams. I don't think the Eagles' defense can stop Kyron. He's really, really good at running the ball, getting in the end zone. I mean, that's what the Rams focus on with him when they're in the red zone, just getting the ball to Kyron. And then I do think the over will hit, just because it's just how good the offenses are going to be and how much weapons they have on both sides.
Now, these defenses aren't much of a slouch either, if I may intervene.
Well, yeah,
I mean, the Rams just sacked Sam Darnold 9 times. I want you to think about that number. That is a lot of times that they are just getting to the quarterback and they are just beating down on him. Granted, Minnesota had to throw a lot as they were down by how much they were, but to just get to the quarterback over and over, it was like every time Darnold was dropping back, and he was just, whether he was seeing ghosts or guys weren't getting open or their pass rush was just that good against that Minnesota offensive line, I don't know what it is, but, Rams definitely have a very good defense. And obviously Philadelphia, we all know, great defense. They have a ton of studs on that defense. Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, Darius Big Play Slay, Quinyon Mitchell, the rookie, has been a stud. They have studs all over that defense. AJ, I'm going to take it to you.
I like a lot of what you guys had to say, and you guys asked, can you trust Jalen Hurts in this situation? We can say one thing about Jalen Hurts, and he throughout his career, and is that he wins. He wins ball games when they matter. He's won the playoffs. He's taken that team to the Super Bowl. Obviously, they didn't win that Super Bowl, but he still got them there. He's won a lot this year. At home against a Rams team who is well coached. It's a tough matchup. But Rams, to me, you guys said the Rams. Bryce, you said Rams too?
Yeah, I did pick the Rams.
You picked the Rams?
You picked the Rams. George, did you make a pick?
George picked the Rams.
24.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, can I stop you guys there? I just want to say the weather conditions. This game is supposed to be really snowy with winds, 70% chance of snow throughout the day per the Weather Channel, and multiple inches of snow on the ground.
Looks like we could have a snow game on our hands, huh?
Yeah, and the same way with Buffalo.
That's going to be intriguing. That's going to lead us into our next game. But AJ, obviously, as you were talking Jalen Hurts, I'd be remiss to not bring up your guy who shares a name with you, AJ Brown.
Well,
and they also have Devontae Smith as well.
Yeah, and I was getting and I was getting into that. AJ, I was gonna wear my jersey tonight, but I didn't. AJ Brown only one target last week against the Packers. I don't know what that really is all about. They say there's drama that could be fake. I don't know. NFL media is kind of weird, and they like to make stories up. But one of the better receivers in the NFL. Probably the best 1-2 punch in the NFL, other than Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But they haven't really shown it this year.
No.
They've only been able to run the ball, but all they've really needed to do to win is run the ball this year. You got to remember that. They don't need to pass the ball, but come playoff time, will they need to pass the ball? And the Rams, man, their defense in the regular season, bottom 3 in the league. Bottom 3 in the league in the regular season. But again, this is a different time. This is playoff time. Coming into this podcast, I was thinking Rams all day. I think Eagles win this game. I think Saquon runs for 180 yards.
Oh.
Maybe not that
That's a
much,
bold
but I think he runs well. And I think that's why they win. That's Eagles football this year. People are trying to make it seem like, oh, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith aren't getting any targets. They don't need to get targets. They're winning games. Jalen Hurts wins games. He's not the best passer in the league, but he wins games. I got Eagles winning. I got them covering.
And I think I'm going to agree with you. I forgot to make my picks the past 2 times. I have Kansas City. I have Houston covering that spread. I have Detroit winning. I have Washington covering that spread. But in this case, I'm going Philly, and I got Philly with the spread too. I think that run game is too dang good. That offensive line, I mean, they're the best offensive line in the league. And I think these playoff games, they come down to the trenches. I don't see how Philly loses this in Philly. Saquon, he took a dive and he slid last week when he could have ran in and got his anytime touchdown score, which I know would have helped this guy out a lot. So Saquon, if you're watching, hit this guy up, maybe get him a signed jersey or something. But that's going to take us into our last game, and really could be the most exciting game of the weekend. You guys already know it. Baltimore at Buffalo. Lamar, Josh Allen, the MVPs of the league come to clash. And mind you, they've played already once this season. And Baltimore smoked Buffalo. I mean, they smoked them. But that was early on in the year. I believe it was week 5. Buffalo has really turned it on in the second half of the season. Josh Allen has looked like an MVP. So has Lamar, really. We'll get to that later, who we think is going to win that award. But Baltimore, our favorite in this game, going into Buffalo by 1.5 points. The over-under line is set at 51.5. Buffalo coming off a 31-7 game against Denver, and Baltimore coming off a 28-14 point victory against Pittsburgh. George, I'm going to start with you in this game. What are your expectations in this Baltimore and Buffalo showdown? And I'll ask you this. What are your expectations for Lamar Jackson? And what does he have to do to get over the hump and get a big playoff victory?
Well, I'll answer the first question, the expectations of this game, and I think that's just, it could all come down to, running game. Buffalo could have a running game if Baltimore's defense can stop Josh, but, at the end of the day, we all know it's Josh versus Lamar. Well, whoever one of those quarterbacks is able to lead their team better and, score touchdowns when they need it, take care of the ball, is probably going to win. And, for Lamar Jackson to get over that hump, like you were talking about, he's just got to play. He doesn't have to do anything out of the ordinary. He just has to play how he's been playing. He has to trust his teammates. He has to, use that read option. Derrick Henry helps him a lot now that he has Derrick Henry. A huge benefit having him now. And, just let Derrick Henry get his rushing yards and then Lamar make his plays like he does. I think he obviously misses Zay Flowers not being back there. That obviously doesn't help that your speedy receiver is out. But Bateman has been playing very well as of late. And Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews have come on. They're having that 1-2 punch at tight end. But I think Lamar just has to do what he does. Don't go out of the ordinary. Don't build this up in your head. Just play his game, and he can do it. But with that being said, I got Buffalo.
Wow. And AJ, I'm going to take it to you now. And a similar question. What are your expectations? And what can Josh Allen do to get over the hump? Because really, these two quarterbacks kind of have a similar upbringing. Great, obviously, Lamar already has the MVP awards, but great regular season quarterbacks, but have been known to choke in the playoffs. What can Josh Allen do to get over the hump?
I don't think it's necessarily what Josh Allen can do. I think it's what this Buffalo Bills team can do as a team. You know, they need to come together as a team and win this game. Josh Allen has done what he could do. Being said in the playoffs, I mean, in the last couple playoffs, I mean, he's done what he's needed to do in order to win, but it just hasn't worked out. So I think if the Bills come together as a team, they can win this game. But you got to remember, they're playing against the hottest team in the AFC right now, in the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs obviously were really hot too, and the Bills were hot. But in terms of scariness right now, I got to give it to the Baltimore Ravens. I think they're the scariest team in the NFL right now. I think they got the most.
I agree with you.
I think they got the most talent on the offensive and defensive side. If you combine those, I think they're the most talented team in the NFL. They got guys like Kyle Hamilton. They got guys like Roquan Smith. They got guys that want to take your head off. That's how they're coached.
Yeah.
And when you got guys that played like Ray Lewis, I mean, that's how you're taught to play. So,
and that's the culture there.
That's the
culture there in Baltimore.
And Lamar Jackson's honestly one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen. I mean, he hasn't won any Super Bowls, but in terms of just athleticism, and he's got an underrated arm. He's one of the best I've seen. I mean, whoever wins this game probably is going to win MVP. I know the MVP is a regular season award, but whoever wins this game deserves MVP in my opinion. But the Baltimore offense reminds me a little bit of a wrecking ball. I mean, it just keeps swinging, and they're heavy. They're heavy hitters.
Yep.
They'll come at you.
Yep.
Derrick Henry, probably the best running back that I've witnessed in my lifetime in the NFL. I mean, would you guys agree?
I definitely
in
agree.
terms of
longevity and dominance too.
Yeah,
really. I mean, he's had a 2,000-yard season in our lifetimes, correct?
Yeah, and he's consistently over the 1,000-yard mark with different teams. I mean, he showed up his first year with the Ravens.
Yeah.
And the thing about Derrick Henry is that you expect him to be a guy that's gonna like run over people at the line of scrimmage, which he does. But Derrick Henry, when I watch him, he's a guy that is actually, I think, better in open space. He's a fast runner. He's a guy that can stiff arm outside.
Yeah.
Once he hits the hole, he's breaking out. I mean, sometimes Derrick struggles to get through that first hole, but once he breaks that hole, I mean, he's got that frame. He's easy. He's a larger body, so he's easier to tackle. In terms of, obviously, he's harder to bring down, but he's a bigger target. But once he breaks down that line of scrimmage, dude, he's the toughest to bring down in the league. Has been for years. Will continue to do that. I got to agree with George. He got Buffalo, even though he said all the things good about Baltimore. So I got Baltimore winning this game. And again, I don't think it's going to be Josh Allen's fault. I know it's like Josh Allen can't win in the playoffs. I just think this is a hard era of football to win. Mahomes has done it with Andy Reid. And I think whoever wins this game is going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs this year. And whoever wins that game is going to go win the Super Bowl. One of these two teams is going to win the Super Bowl. I got Baltimore Ravens in this game. I don't know. And with Amari Cooper, I wanted to bring that up. I don't know what.
Yeah, that's
Tyler?
a very interesting point. I was thinking about this earlier. I think with the way the Buffalo Bills and what they asked Josh Allen to do, they run a lot of scramble drill, right? Like, they'll run a ton of quick game and get the ball out of Josh's hands real fast early on. But as the game goes on, Josh is looking to make plays happen, and he extends plays. You know, he's the best. Lamar's the best. They're both the best at extending plays, along with Mahomes. Like, I can't tell you who's the best at it, but, man, Josh Allen does it his own way. And he just looks like a big farm boy out in recess, running around, and then hucking that thing 50 yards downfield. And I think that has to do a lot with why Amari Cooper hasn't kind of emerged to be that top dog. Obviously, you add a guy mid-season. He's not familiar with the offense and the scheme. I understand that. But it's playoff time now. He's been there 8, 9, 10 weeks. And, I think that's just Josh Allen. And I don't think he needs a number one guy. And I think that's the reason why Stephon Diggs left. And, I don't think he really needs a number one guy. I think right now in Josh Allen's career, obviously as he grows older and he has to stay in the pocket and he can't move around much, he'll need a number one guy. But right now he doesn't. he can move around and he can make things happen with his arms and legs, and he can just find an open guy. And, my prediction for the game before I go to you, Bryce, with all that being said, I still have Baltimore. The Buffalo Bills defense has too much to stop. If you want to commit to stopping that run, you have to face Lamar Jackson's arm. And you have to face the receivers who have been playing pretty well. And Zay Flowers has a chance to play still. And they still have 2 dominant tight ends. And it's just Bateman's playing well. Aguilar can come in and make plays too when you need him to. And Lamar can improvise like no other as well. And you want to stop that pass game. Good luck stopping that run game with Lamar and Derrick Henry. I think Baltimore wins, and with the spread being 1.5, I think Baltimore covers the spread as well. Bryce.
Well, I think the Bills will actually be able to stop his arm. They'll focus on the run game because the weather in this game will be 14 degrees at kickoff, and it will feel like -3. And then there's going to be a lot of snow. Lake snow effect warnings are currently in effect at Highmark Stadium, so all teams are going to focus on the run game.
That's big.
I think the Bills will stop that run game, and, they'll focus on that, but I think they'll stop it too. And then I'm going to go with the under here at 51.5 because of the snow and the temperatures. And the Bills crowd is just going to be really loud. They're going to be pumped up for this game. I don't think the Ravens will be able to play really that good in the cold just because they're in Baltimore.
Well, Baltimore's still.
Oh, I get that, but Buffalo.
Buffalo, yeah. Buffalo's a different environment.
They're adapted to that environment, their weather, and so I just think the Bills win.
Oh, fuck. George is off.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about.
Ah.
I was